Welcome to Magic Circle in the Skies podcast. Yes, the title has changed as of from today. We'll continue with our podcast as usual, starting off with a big thanks to people that have liked, shared, and subscribed. This is very much appreciated. Now let's begin with today's episode, The Stone of a Wise Man by Hans Christian Andersen, which I've renamed as A Powerful Journey Unlocks the Magic Within. We'll start off with our summary as usual, where I'll digress on a few highlighted sentences. Then we'll move on to a brief reflection and a pearl of wisdom, continuing with my critical review on how this fairy tale plays in today's society and the parallels using a film, or maybe a recent film or an old film, to illustrate this. And then we'll move on to the trigger points. What triggers were evident in the fairy tale and which ones triggered me? And then we'll close with our quote, my quote. So let's begin with The Stone of a Wise Man, or A Powerful Journey Unlocks the Magic Within. It's a fairy tale by Hans Christian Andersen that tells the story of a young king who embarks on a journey to find the legendary stone of a wise man. I digress. Wisdom isn't an object. You can't touch it and pick it up. It's knowledge gleaned from experience, also known as the philosopher's stone. This stone is said to grant its possessors immense wisdom, power, and wealth. I digress. People are forever in search of gaining more external power than developing the power they were born with. Reflection. The central theme of the story revolves around the quest of wisdom and the realization that it's more valuable than material wealth. The young king learns throughout his journey that true wisdom comes from experience, introspection, and personal growth. Here's my pearl of wisdom. The crown jewel is the experience and the process of what accumulates to an unconscious and conscious knowing that can't be explained beyond the invisible of energetic activation within life's journey. As the king travels through various lands, he encounters different people who are also in search of the stone. I digress. It sounds like people haven't discovered who they are, and the journey acts as a roadmap to discover themselves, each with their own motivation and desires. I digress. This bejeweled stone is used as a distraction to take people on a wild goose chase, I believe. Throughout his journey, he learns about their stories, and each encounter imparts valuable life lessons and wisdom to the young king. I digress. The young king starts to realize a valuable life lesson, which gives a broader perspective than before. Reflection. As the king encounters various characters on his quest, he learns more about himself exactly and his motivations. The journey serves as a metaphor for the process of self-discovery and personal development, a pearl of wisdom. The amazing self-discovery is the hidden treasure within, but the journey isn't through kilometers, it's through process and experience who we are as a person. In one instance, the king meets a poor scholar who has spent his entire life trying to uncover the secret of the stone. Oh, how unfortunate. I digress. The secret of the stone that doesn't exist, or deep revelation of himself. Despite his poverty and hardship, the scholar remains focused on his quest for knowledge. I digress. I believe this scholar's focus is misdirected. The king also encounters a princess who searches for the stone to gain the power to save her kingdom and from invaders. I digress. Back in the day, it was unusual for a young girl to have such authority over land. So I understand her naivety to chase after an object to act as something magical. Each character that the king encounters, it teaches him about different aspects of life and the human experience. I digress. The king is experiencing the seamless magic of wisdom through people's story. Reflection. The story emphasizes that it's not the end goal, but the journey itself that holds the most value. The king's quest for the stone leads him to gain wisdom and understanding from the people he meets and the experiences he has along the way, a pearl of wisdom. People's encounters along our journey act as a collection of semi-precious treasure. Our interpretation is what creates the incredible jewel we form within. Gradually, the king comes to realize that the true treasure lies not in the stone itself, but in the experience and the wisdom he gains along the way. I digress. We often go in search of something when it's inside of us, just waiting to be discovered. The journey serves as a metaphor for personal growth and self-discovery, with the king learning valuable lessons about the importance of wisdom, compassion, and understanding. I digress. I respect the young king's initial drive, but unlike the rest of the people on the journey, he wakes up while at the same time being willing to do the work. Reflection. Throughout the story, the king encounters various individuals who are driven by greed, selfishness, or ambition in their pursuit of the stone. The tale illustrates the importance of kindness, compassion, and empathy, as these qualities help the king gain the wisdom he seeks. A pearl of wisdom. The power of the jewels of our humanness is the true wealth within, not money. It's our essence of who we are, and that's priceless. In the end, the king returns to his kingdom, a wiser, more compassionate ruler. I digress. Of course he does. He's found the jewel, which was a process of gaining knowledge. The story concludes with the message that true wisdom is more valuable than material wealth, and that the pursuit of knowledge is a journey in itself. I digress. Wisdom guides wealth, but wealth can't buy wisdom. A wise person can generate and manage wealth, but a wealthy person without wisdom may lose everything, where the experiences and lessons learned along the way are the real treasures. I digress. These are invaluable life lessons which can't be bought. Reflection. Throughout the story, the king encounters various individuals who are, again, driven by greed. Now, for my critical review. What an interesting story. You know, wisdom is the magic of the journey and the experience. It's not an object. My critical review on how this fairy tale plays in today's society. Wealth has always been measured by how much money we have accumulated during our lives. Society has controlled our character, self-worth, class system, who we are, by setting economic standards that deem us qualified to fit into certain brackets of financial literacy in terms of money management. When I was living in the United States, I felt in the United States, I felt like I was nothing. In other words, worthless. If I didn't have that treasured dollar bill dangling from my fingertips, so to speak. We have been brainwashed to believe material wealth is favored over spiritual wealth, which sustains our life far beyond crashing lows and highs surpassing our imagination. Wisdom is often considered more valuable than material wealth because it provides long-term benefits that money alone cannot buy. Here's why. Here's why. This is provided by ChatGTP. Number one, wisdom guides wealth, but wealth can't buy wisdom. A wise person can generate and manage wealth, but a wealthy person without wisdom may lose everything. Inner fulfillment versus external possession. Material wealth brings comfort, but wisdom brings inner peace, discernment, and true contentment that isn't dependent on external factors. Making money has certain structured pathways on how to repeatedly create a fountain of wealth to sustain ourselves, like a 12-step program of what and how to do, whereas wisdom isn't structuring in the same way. The presence of wisdom introduces itself like a meandering river of supple lessons that reveal their magic through aha moments. Of course, if I hadn't dropped out of university and opted for a calligraphy class, I would never have learned X, Y, and Z. Wisdom is connecting the dots in the future while reflecting from situations, events that happened in our past. However, history is layered with extraordinary materialistic wealthy people who have been so desperately unhappy. Aristotle Onassis, a Greek shipping magnate, left his daughter a huge fortune of billions of dollars, yet she was so desperately unhappy, she committed suicide. So if we can be patient to go the distance and unlock our magic within, the applied knowledge that acts like a seamless flow of magic with a hypnotic pull can only be attained by lessons learned from life experiences. Now let's move on to a film example of this journey. And this journey is from Cinderella Man. It's a true story. Let's begin. Cinderella Man is a true story from the Great Depression. Also, like the film, it's about an underdog who becomes a hero and a symbol of hope for the downtrodden. The king becomes a symbol of hope for the people that he goes back to. At the beginning of Cinderella Man, Jim Braddock, a successful boxer, enjoying a comfortable lifestyle with his wife, May, and their 3 children. 5 years later, Braddock is crushed by the depression. A broken hand has lost him matches, his boxing license has been revoked, and he and his family have moved from their house to a cramped apartment, unable to pay the bills. So he takes work on the docks, but the family slips deeper and deeper into debt. Don't we know that? I know this very well. A chance to get back into the ring, pardon me, comes with a last-minute offer to fight from his former manager, Joe Gould. It's been a year since his last bout, and no one expects him to win over his opponent, a leading contender. But when he does, and he continues to do so, showing a remarkable left hook that he has developed on the docks while favoring his left arm against the injured right, He's so impressive that the boxing promoter, Jimmy Johnson, reinstates his license, always with the thought of keeping his family together. See, his journey was really more about keeping his family together than making money. But the money really, really helped. But the wisdom of why he was doing what he was doing had to do with his first sense of real security, and that was the family. Braddock goes from strength to strength, but while he becomes people's champion, May, his wife, is fearful of seeing him hurt, is unable to attend his fights, with victory following victory. Braddock soon is able to achieve what not so long ago would have seemed impossible. A chance for a title fight against the much-favored heavyweight champion, Max Baer, a boxer so powerful he has already killed 2 opponents. You can imagine what his wife must have been fearful of and thinking. He surprisingly wins, though, and is given the name Cinderella Man, or Cinderella Man, or Cinderella went from rags to riches, very much so as Cinderella Man does. He goes from rags to riches in the Depression, illustrating his hero's journey from rags to riches while keeping his family secure. His journey was about financial protection and power. A journey can also be used as a course, like a psychological roadmap of the process of achieving a goal, an objective. Jim Braddock retraces his steps of a previous journey in his past career and meets with tremendous success, all due to his courage to fight for the security in his family and accumulate the wealth he desires. So in a way, his journey wasn't just about money. It was about securing his family. And when you think of the king, he went out looking for this stone. He didn't find a stone, but he found the treasure within him. And he also found the humanness side. And that was being compassionate and kind. And he took those wonderful jewels and experience back with him and used them on his people in the kingdom. So it was like there's the parallel there is that it was more from the human side of wisdom as opposed to accumulating wealth. Now, the trigger point. Well, I was born into as an old soul with wisdom inherited from my past life experiences, that I do believe in past lives. But when I entered my toxic family, I was viewed as the weird black sheep in the family who had unique instincts and awareness. Now, I believe that wisdom and instincts and intuition, all of these things are what you call spiritual gifts, and we all have them within. Some are more, with some people it's more developed and more pronounced, but we all have them. But mine were treated like in an abusive way. My mother used to treat me as an oracle, which I detested. My strong intuitive abilities set me apart from the very spiritually gifted group of people, although my parents' misuse of spiritual gifts caused karmic harm to their children. I come from a spiritually gifted family, but my parents, the authorities in my family, they abused those spiritual gifts. And as well, I was repulsed by that. This frightened me, along with being used as the scapegoat responsible for the cause of things I had nothing to do with. Because of my insecurities, I didn't know how to trust myself. I was left dependent on unreliable people to be a type of guide, not realizing my natural intuitive gifts and wisdom I had obtained. along this particular journey with my family. Because my parents used me as an oracle, it put enormous pressure on me to be right, especially when my mother was backing the horses. I was blindly guessing and hoping for the best result, but I wasn't tapping into my organic feelings of awareness and natural impressions. That wasn't happening at all. Intuition is the ability to have instincts about things one has no conscious knowledge of. And because I spent a large portion of my life being surrounded by traditionalists and academics that were not that were out of touch when it came to spiritual and unseen forces, my intuition has been now brought to the surface. You know, a lot of academics and intelligent people, people that view themselves as being intelligent, sort of turn their nose up at, you know, people that have a spiritual gift. And as I said, we all have spiritual gifts. Some are more pronounced than others. I learned very much so through the spiritual awakening that I went through and the ascension that I've experienced, that there are things that I know and I don't know how I know them, but I just do. And there are other things that I know, and I know that I know them because of the journey that I have taken. So the wisdom, the knowledge, the applied knowledge is a mixture of what I would call downloads from spirit and also life experiences. So I have learned through my journey, and it was a long journey, I have learned to trust myself step by step by step. The other day I was in a foundations class. I go to this foundations class connected to my church. And I had mentioned something about Mary Magdalene, and I wasn't quite sure. I doubted myself. I immediately doubted myself, even though my instincts were telling me, you're right, you're right, you're right. Can you see what I'm talking about? I was right, but I doubted myself. But I continued pursuing this track of finding out about Mary Magdalene, and I was absolutely right. I was absolutely right. In fact, that I was not only right that she repented, but her form of repentance was most unorthodox. And it was very compelling. Anyway, so that was my trigger point. That was a trigger point. It was a negative trigger point, and it turned out to be a positive trigger point in the end. The negative part was, you know, I just detested the abuse of my spiritual gifts and my parents' spiritual gifts, and how it affected my sister and I as children, and even as young adults. But the good thing about the spiritual gifts is realizing how to trust myself, how to believe in myself. I don't trust myself 100%. I may trust myself when it comes to my instincts, like as small as a mustard seed, but at least I believe in it. It's true for me, as small as a mustard seed. So there you go. There's my treasure from within. And here's the end of today's episode with the new title of Magic Circles in the Sky. We're going to end with my quote. Healing is a lifelong lesson, blessing, and gift we give ourselves, mind, body, and soul. Healing is a lifelong lesson, blessing, and gift we give ourselves, mind, body, and soul. Well, thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.